All right, so are you ready for this?
I think so.
It's a deep dive into vocabulary.
Oh, fine.
It's really powerful vocabulary.
Awesome.
So you sent in this conversation between Alex and Alexa,
Yeah.
where they unpack 10 English words.
Okay.
10.
10 words. Wow.
And I have to say, they had some fascinating insights.
Yeah, it's remarkable how much depth there is
Really?
to these words. You know, they seem simple, but
Yeah.
they really are tools for effective communication,
Totally.
just like you said in your notes.
So we're talking about resilience,
Uh-huh.
harmony, insightful, empathy, meticulous,
Okay.
optimistic, charismatic, perseverance, humility.
Wow, that's a lot.
I know.
Okay.
And visionary.
Okay.
And let me tell you,
All right.
Alex and Alexa went beyond the basic definitions here.
I bet they did.
They gave some truly thought-provoking examples.
I like that.
Okay.
So where do we start?
Well, they start with resilient,
Okay.
which they define as bouncing back from difficulties.
Yeah, makes sense.
And they use the example of a basketball player recovering from injury.
Okay.
But it goes beyond that.
Oh, how so?
Lex actually pointed out that resilience is both physical and mental.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that got me thinking,
What's that?
doesn't mental toughness often play a huge role in physical recovery?
I mean...
Like if you believe you can overcome an injury,
Yeah,
doesn't that affect your healing process?
that's a great point.
Yeah.
There's definitely a connection there.
Yeah.
And think about it.
Okay.
Sometimes facing physical challenges can build your mental resilience, too.
Oh, for sure.
It's almost like they feed off each other.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Oh.
their next word was harmony.
All right.
And they went beyond just agreement,
Uh-huh.
talking about this sense of balance and peace.
Yeah.
And their example was a park where humans and wildlife coexist peacefully.
I love that example.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It reminds us that harmony isn't just about everyone getting along. It's about this interconnectedness
Yeah.
where different elements come together in a beautiful way.
So true.
And they even brought up music,
Oh, okay.
like a choir singing in perfect harmony.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
all those voices blending together to create something greater than the sum of their parts.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so speaking of seeing the bigger picture,
Yes.
let's move on to insightful.
Okay.
So Alex and Alexa described it as more than just deep understanding.
Yeah.
It's about seeing what others miss. They talked about an insightful comment
Yeah.
during a meeting that solved a problem no one else could figure out.
Ah, like that aha moment
Exactly.
where you connect the dots that everyone else has overlooked.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And they also mentioned a writer whose book completely changed how people understood history.
Wow.
It makes you realize that being insightful can have a ripple effect, shifting perspectives on a grand scale.
Okay, that segues perfectly into empathy.
It does.
Because understanding others' perspectives is a
Yeah.
huge part of empathy.
Right.
Alex and Alexa defined it as understanding and sharing someone else's feelings.
Okay.
Mm.
And they gave a really powerful example of a teacher using empathy to connect with struggling students.
Oh, wow.
It's like
Yeah.
when you truly empathize with someone,
Yeah.
you create a space for understanding and support,
Uh-huh.
which can be so transformative,
Yes.
especially in a learning environment.
And it's not just about helping others.
Right.
Empathy can also help resolve conflicts.
Yeah, for sure.
They talked about friends arguing
Uh-huh.
and how seeing things from each other's point of view led to a resolution.
That makes sense.
I bet you've seen that happen in your own life,
All the time.
where empathy helped smooth things over.
Yeah, definitely.
It's such a powerful tool for communication
It is.
and building stronger relationships.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
as much as empathy is about understanding emotions,
Mhm.
the next word, meticulous, is all about attention to detail.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Alex and Alexa talked about meticulousness using the example of a painter,
Mm-hmm.
carefully adding every tiny detail to their artwork.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is how they highlighted how important meticulousness is in professions like a doctor's,
Right.
where precision is absolutely crucial.
Oh, yeah, of course.
A tiny mistake could have huge consequences.
For sure.
But meticulousness can also be important for, say, a wedding planner,
Oh, yeah.
making sure every detail of a big event is perfect.
It's about striving for excellence
Yeah,
in whatever you do right,
totally.
paying attention to the details no matter how small.
I like that.
Okay, ready for a little shift in energy?
I am.
Alex and Alexa's next word is optimistic.
Okay.
And they didn't just talk about having a sunny outlook.
Right.
They emphasized how optimism can actually inspire action. They use the example of an entrepreneur who faced setbacks but still kept going because they believed in their vision.
I see.
So it's not just about positive thinking.
Yeah.
It's about having that belief in a brighter future that fuels your actions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also mentioned an optimistic leader motivating their team after a disappointment. It shows that optimism can be contagious.
It really can.
One person's belief can really lift up an entire group.
For sure.
And speaking of people who can inspire others,
We've got charismatic
we do.
Alex,
Yeah.
and Alexa described it as having this strong appeal that draws people in,
Right.
like a speaker who can captivate an audience for hours.
Wow.
You know what struck me
Yeah.
is how they emphasize the charisma is more than just charm.
Yeah.
It's about creating a connection,
Uh-huh.
making people feel seen and heard.
Okay.
They talked about a teacher whose charisma made every student feel special.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's like that spark that makes people want to be around you, right?
Sort of.
It makes them feel good about themselves, too.
Absolutely.
Okay, this next word might require a bit more.
A bit more what?
Well, perseverance.
Oh, I like that.
That's a great transition.
I try.
Because Alex and Alexa define perseverance as continuing, even when things are tough.
Makes sense.
They share the example of a scientist who kept researching for years before finally making a breakthrough.
Years.
Years.
Wow, that's dedication.
It really highlights how perseverance isn't about instant gratification.
Right.
It's about that long-term commitment to your goals, even when progress is slow.
I see.
And they also talk about a writer who spent 5 years completing their novel.
Oh, wow.
It makes you think about all the small steps and daily efforts that go into achieving something big.
It does.
Speaking of keeping things grounded,
Yes.
we've got humility,
We do.
which Alex and Alexa defined as being modest and not thinking you're better than others.
Right.
They gave the example of a successful person who remained down to earth despite their achievements.
Oh, I like that.
And what I found really interesting is
What's that?
how they linked humility to learning.
Uh-huh.
They talked about someone accepting constructive criticism gracefully
Okay.
and using it to improve.
Yeah.
It shows that humility isn't about putting yourself down.
Right.
It's about being open to growth.
I like that a lot.
So it's actually a strength, not a weakness, right?
It is.
Because it allows you to learn and evolve.
Totally.
Now, for our final word,
Okay.
we're going to get a little visionary.
Ooh, I love it.
This was a great way to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
Alex and Alexa defined visionary as having clear ideas about the future and thinking creatively.
I like that.
They used the classic example of Steve Jobs revolutionizing the tech industry.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But they didn't stop there.
Oh.
They talked about visionaries as doers, not just dreamers.
Oh, okay.
They gave an example of an architect designing buildings that are both beautiful and eco-friendly.
Cool.
It really highlights how a visionary can create tangible change in the world. It's about seeing a better future and then taking steps to actually make it happen.
I like that.
All right. So there you have it.
There we go.
10 incredibly powerful words
No.
as explored by Alex and Alexa.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on,
Okay.
take a moment to consider
Mm-hmm.
which of these words resonated with you the most?
Okay.
And how have you seen these words play out in your own life?
That's a good question.
We'll be right back to dive deeper into each of these words, so keep those thoughts brewing.
Okay. Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling inspired by these words, and we've only just scratched the surface.
It's incredible how Alex and Alexa managed to pack so much insight into their conversation.
I know, right?
I was particularly struck by how they connected resilient to the idea of community.
Okay.
They brought up the example of a town rebuilding after a hurricane.
Oh, I remember that.
It wasn't just about individual resilience.
Yeah.
It was about people coming together, supporting each other, and rebuilding as a collective.
Exactly. And they made a similar point with harmony, didn't they?
They did.
They went beyond just interpersonal harmony and talked about how it exists in nature.
Yeah.
That image of a park where humans and wildlife coexist peacefully.
I love that one.
It really underscores the idea that harmony is about respecting the delicate balance of an entire ecosystem.
It does. And that reminds me of something you mentioned earlier
Oh, yeah.
about mental and physical resilience feeding off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think harmony has a similar dynamic.
Okay.
When we cultivate inner peace and balance,
Yeah,
it often ripples outward into our relationships and the world around us.
absolutely. It's like creating a positive feedback loop.
It is.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
I was really fascinated by Alex and Alexa's discussion of insightful poor.
Yeah,
They talked about how insightful thinking can lead to major breakthroughs.
they did. They mentioned a writer whose book challenged traditional historical narratives. It's a perfect example of how insightful perspectives can reshape our understanding of the past
Yeah.
and even influence the present.
It's like shining a light on something that's been hidden in plain sight,
Uh-huh.
revealing a whole new layer of meaning.
Exactly.
And speaking of understanding different perspectives,
Okay.
let's delve deeper into empathy.
Let's.
Alex and Alexa highlighted how crucial empathy is for resolving conflicts.
Right.
They shared the example of someone using empathy to understand both sides of an argument,
Uh-huh.
which ultimately led to a peaceful resolution.
That's great.
You know, that makes me think about how we often jump to conclusions
Yeah.
or make judgments without truly understanding where the other person is coming from.
It's true.
Empathy is about pausing, listening, and trying to see the world through their eyes.
It is. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique experiences and perspectives that shape how they see the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes simply acknowledging those differences can be enough to bridge the gap and find common ground.
Totally. Now, from the complexities of empathy,
Okay.
let's move on to something a bit more precise.
Right.
Alex, and Alexa's example from Meticulous, was a wedding planner who makes sure every detail of a big event is flawless.
I loved that example.
It shows that meticulousness isn't just about being detail-oriented.
Right.
It's about taking pride in your work
Uh-huh.
and ensuring that everything is done to the highest standard.
I agree.
It's a form of dedication and responsibility.
It is, and it made me think,
What's that?
you know how they said meticulousness is important in professions like a doctor's?
Yeah?
Well, I think it's also crucial in creative fields.
Oh, totally.
Imagine a musician painstakingly composing a symphony, or an artist spending hours getting every brushstroke just right. It's that dedication to detail that elevates their work to a whole new level.
It really does. Okay, ready for a dose of positivity?
Always.
Alex and Alexa's take on optimistic was really interesting.
Oh, was it?
They talked about how it can be a driving force for positive change,
Yeah.
not just a feel-good attitude.
Right.
They gave the example of an optimistic leader who inspired their team to keep going after a setback.
Yeah, I like that example.
It reminds me of something you said earlier
Oh, yeah.
about how optimism can be contagious.
It is.
When you believe in a brighter future,
Uh-huh.
it's much easier to rally others to the cause.
Absolutely. It's about choosing to focus on possibilities
Yeah,
rather than getting bogged down by limitations.
right.
And, that optimistic spirit can be incredibly powerful,
Yes.
especially when facing challenges.
Speaking of powerful personalities,
Yeah.
let's talk about charismatic.
Okay.
Alex and Alexa shared an example of a teacher who made every student feel special.
Oh, wow.
It really highlighted how charisma can be used to uplift and empower others.
I see that.
It wasn't just about being charming.
Right.
It was about making genuine connections and creating a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And that resonated with me because I think we all have the capacity to be charismatic in our own way, to make people feel seen and valued.
Totally.
It's about finding that spark within ourselves and letting it shine.
Love it. Love it. Now, this next word might require a little more effort,
Okay,
but the payoff is worth it.
I like that.
Alex, and Alexa's example for perseverance, was a writer who spent 5 years working on a novel.
I remember that one.
And what they highlighted is that perseverance isn't always about making big, dramatic leaps forward.
Uh-huh.
It's often about the small, consistent efforts we make each day,
Yeah.
even when progress feels slow.
Right. It's about having that unwavering commitment to our goals,
Yeah.
even when faced with obstacles and setbacks.
It is, and that writer's story reminded me
What's that?
that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
I love that it's about finding fulfillment in the process,
Uh-huh.
not just the outcome.
Exactly. Now, from the outward drive of perseverance,
Okay.
let's turn inward to explore humility.
Alex and Alexa talked about how humility can actually enhance our ability to learn and grow.
Yeah, they shared the example of someone accepting constructive criticism gracefully and using it to improve their skills.
Right.
It showed that humility isn't about diminishing ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we all have room for improvement.
It's about being open to feedback, being willing to admit when we're wrong,
Yeah,
and seeing those moments as opportunities for growth.
totally.
And you know what?
Right.
I think humility is closely linked to empathy.
Oh, absolutely. When we approach others What? With humility. Yeah. It creates a space for open dialogue and understanding. It allows us to learn from each other's experiences and perspectives.
And finally, let's wrap up this part of our deep dive with a glimpse into the future.
Okay.
Alex and Alexa use Steve Jobs as an example of a visionary.
Yeah.
Highlighting his impact on the tech industry.
Makes sense.
But they also emphasize that visionaries are not just dreamers. They are doers.
Okay.
They shared the example of an architect designing buildings that are both beautiful and eco-friendly, showing that visionary thinking can lead to real-world solutions.
It's about having a clear vision of a better future,
Right.
and then taking concrete steps to make it a reality.
It's about looking beyond the present.
Yeah.
And challenging the status quo, isn't it?
It is.
It's about believing that we can create a world that's more innovative, more sustainable, and more fulfilling for everyone.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a beautiful note to end on as we move into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
I encourage you to reflect on these words and how they resonate with your own experiences.
All right.
What are your visions for the future? How can you cultivate more empathy, resilience, and perseverance in your own life?
That's a good one.
Keep those questions in mind as we continue our exploration.
I will.
We'll be right back. Welcome back for our final part now.
Here we are.
You know, as we've been exploring these 10 words, I've been thinking about how they're not just about individual growth.
Right.
They have this ripple effect that extends outwards.
That's a fantastic observation.
Yeah.
Alex and Alexa touched on that throughout their conversation.
They did.
Remember how they talked about resilience on a community level?
Oh, yeah.
With the town rebuilding after a hurricane?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they made a similar point with harmony.
They did.
Showing how it can exist not just between people, but within entire ecosystems.
Right.
It's like these words have the power to create a more harmonious and resilient world, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And understanding that our individual actions can contribute to a larger collective good.
Sure. And speaking of making a difference,
Okay.
I think the word insightful really highlights the power of ideas.
Oh, how so?
You mean how Alex and Alexa talked about the writer whose book changed how people thought about history?
Yes.
It's like one insightful idea can shift perspectives on a global scale.
Precisely. And if we connect that to empathy,
Okay.
it makes you realize that understanding other people's viewpoints is essential for creating positive change.
Right. Because if you can't understand where someone else is coming from,
Yeah.
how can you possibly work together to find solutions?
Right.
It's like empathy is the bridge that connects us and allows us to build something better together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And, as we're talking about building and creating, I keep thinking back to Meticulous.
Okay.
It's about striving for excellence, paying attention to the details,
Yeah.
and taking pride in the work we do.
Exactly.
Whether it's a doctor performing surgery, a musician composing a symphony,
Right.
or even just someone carefully crafting an email.
Uh-huh.
That level of meticulousness really makes a difference.
It elevates the quality of everything we create.
It does.
It contributes to a world that's well-crafted and thoughtfully designed.
Yeah, and, it takes a certain level of optimism to believe that those efforts will ultimately matter.
That's a great point. Alex and Alexa talked about how optimism isn't just about having a positive attitude. It's about believing in a brighter future and taking action to make it happen.
And I think that optimism is contagious.
I think so, too.
When we surround ourselves with people who believe in possibilities,
Yeah.
it fuels our own motivation and inspires us to keep going even when things get tough.
For sure. And speaking of tough.
We've got to talk about perseverance.
Oh, yeah.
Alex and Alexa's example of the writer who spent 5 years working on their novel really resonated with me.
It's a reminder that big goals often require small, consistent efforts over a long period of time. It's not always about those dramatic breakthroughs. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work,
Right.
even when progress feels slow.
And I think humility plays a big role in that process.
Oh, totally.
Because when we're humble,
Yeah.
we're open to learning from our mistakes. We're willing to ask for help.
Right.
And we don't let setbacks crush our spirit.
So true humility allows us to stay grounded and focused on the journey, even when it's challenging.
Right.
And ultimately, I think it's that combination of perseverance and humility that allows us to achieve great things.
That's beautiful. Now, as we approach the end of our deep dive,
Already.
I want to bring it back to you.
Okay.
Remember how Alex and Alexa encouraged us to think about our own visions for the future?
I do.
They challenged us to consider what we want to create and contribute to the world.
Yeah.
And I think these 10 words provide a roadmap for making those visions a reality.
I agree.
By cultivating resilience, embracing harmony, seeking insights, practicing empathy, being meticulous, staying optimistic, exuding charisma, persevering through challenges, embracing humility, and nurturing our visionary thinking, we can all make a positive impact on the world around us.
And remember, those words aren't just abstract concepts.
Right.
They're tools that you can use every single day.
Okay.
So pay attention to how they show up in your life, in your conversations, in your interactions with others.
And keep those vocabulary muscles flexed.
That's right.
You never know when you might need to tap into the power of a well-chosen word.
Exactly. Who knows? Maybe someday you'll be the one inspiring others with your insightful ideas and eloquent communication.
I like that.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
That's great advice.